Ian and Tom Lavero.
Money is how NFL rosters are managed. The cap. We talk a lot about it, but we don't know as much about it as our next guest does. We'll get to him in a moment. NFL Power Rankings coming up at 125. And I have found, Tom, that this is the hardest week in putting together the top 5 teams in the NFL since the beginning of the season.
Well, that's because you're not very good at it.
I'm not very good at it. You're terrific at it, and you're such a preparation freak. So I can't wait to hear it at 125. Joining us now is Jimmy Halsell. Jimmy has a website, insidethecap.blogspot.com, and Jimmy is one of the guys that I have followed for about a year and a half now when I found his website, because he totally gets how the cap works and which teams manage it well and which teams don't. And Jimmy, before we get started with sort of this big question that looms out there about the uncapped year if there's no CBA agreement between players and owners, give us real quickly your background, because you worked for the Redskins.
Right. I was the salary cap analyst for the Redskins for the past 2 seasons, so basically working with Eric Schaefer there and all of the contracts that we negotiated over that time, whether it's LaRon Landry's number 6 overall pick, or our second rounders last year, or the Chris Cooley extension that we did in 2007. So did that for the past 2 seasons in Washington. Prior to that, worked in the NFL League office for the Management Council, where I helped those guys administer on a day-to-day basis the salary cap and review and approve all player contracts for all 32 teams. So have a pretty good background and grasp on the cap and contract.
All right, before we get to next year in the uncapped season, just give me your high-level thoughts as it relates to the Redskins and how they've managed the roster, under the cap over the last few years.
Yeah, clearly the owner, he's taken a very aggressive approach towards player acquisition, primarily going after veteran players, and trying to do that within the constraints of the salary cap is definitely a challenge. Anytime you work in football administration there in Washington, you've got a tough chore, because at the end of the day, it's really not your decision on how you go about acquiring players from a financial perspective or from a salary cap perspective. And so a lot of times you kind of get your marching orders and you make it work. Now that philosophy has led to they haven't been awful over the past 10 years, but they've been decently mediocre, and they haven't been great. You look at other organizations, like Philadelphia or Minnesota, that currently have, $150 million, in salary cap that they can, use to go after players, but yet, still build through the draft. That's a completely different philosophy than the one that is currently in place in Washington.
Explain to us why it doesn't work what the Redskins do. And I've always said, and for simplicity's sake, I've always explained it as when you invest so much into so few, you create a situation where you've got holes not only in frontline starter spots, but in depth, in the depth situations. Is that the easiest way to explain it?
It does. I mean, it definitely leads to issues with depth, because if you look at a Philadelphia as an example, those guys, they build through the draft. Indy, they build through the draft, and as a result, their backup players are, at least draft caliber players who have a certain level of skill to them. Whereas, in Washington, as of late, we really haven't had too many draft picks, and so therefore, you do spend on an Albert Haynesworth, you spend on a D Hall. But the people who are on special teams, the people who are, your second level guys, aren't the quality that the second level guys at other organizations are going to be. So you're correct in that it does, hamper you from a depth perspective, particularly when, you're not rolling over money from one cap year to another, so that way, if you want to continue to build through the draft, but you want to take a shot at an Asante Samuel like Philadelphia did this year, or take a shot at a Jason Peters, you can do that because you have managed your cap efficiently. And so you're still building through the draft, building that good depth, and then still also being able to go after a high-priced veteran here and there.
Jimmy, why is it, and explain to me and the fans, because I don't quite get the details, why is it so would it be so difficult for the Redskins, let's say, to trade a guy with a salary like Clinton Portis?
Yeah, the thing about that is in Washington, we did that with a few players where, you've pushed money out or you've created a lot of money that from an accounting standpoint, from a salary cap accounting standpoint, is just out there in future years. And, you have to deal with it, whether it be today or later, and so with, say, a Clinton Portis, for example, he's got so much money in future years that, if you were to trade him or cut him, say, in 2010, that he's still going to count for the same amount of money from a salary cap accounting standpoint as he would if he was still on the team.
And it would accelerate.
It would accelerate. So, if Clinton, for example, if his cap number, if he's on the team in 2010, is, say, roughly a little over $10.5 million, right? If you trade him or you just cut him, he's still going to count for $10.4 million against your cap for a player who's not even on your team.
Dead money.
Yeah, it's dead money from a salary cap accounting standpoint. Similarly, John Jansen, because of the deal that, he got, his most recent deal that he got before, he was let go, is counting actually more against their cap this year, even though he's not on the team. Brandon Lloyd still counting like $5 million on their books, even though he hasn't played for them since 2007.
And just to clarify for those that aren't following it clearly, you have a certain amount of money that you can spend in a given year. That's the cap, and I think it's like $128 million or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like
this year.
$127 this year.
So you just gave us basically somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million in dead money in Jansen and Lloyd's contract, and they don't have those players playing,
and those guys aren't even playing,
and they're not even playing. So the more, and in Portis's case, because they've restructured over and over again, and they've pushed some of that signing bonus money out and out, he's got to be on the roster or it accelerates and it all hits in either 1 or 2 years.
Exactly.
But I want to get to next year because there is an opportunity, right, for a team like the Redskins, if there's an uncapped year, to get rid of a lot of these contracts without that acceleration, penalty, if you will, hurting them. Explain how the Redskins or a team like them could benefit from an uncapped year.
Well, from an accounting standpoint, yeah, you still would have that acceleration, but the positive is that you don't have the constraint of a salary cap.
Right.
So from an accounting standpoint, yeah, you still take on a Clinton Portis, $10.5 million dead money hit, but, you're not constrained.
Yeah, you don't go over a cap number because there's no cap.
There's no cap to go over. And so, so that opportunity is there. Some people then kind of fear that, the Dan Snyders of the world or the Jerry Joneses of the world in an uncapped world will just kind of go the way of, George Steinbrenner and just buy up all the good players. And, I've talked to some guys around the league, and the sentiment that I've gotten is that, they don't feel that it's going to go that route, that the league – the thing about the cap is that it helps facilitate parity because, everybody does have this 127, cap or roundabout. And so, if you're Washington – you would think that maybe Dan would go after a bunch of, top flight guys to kind of rebuild the team or, try to do it that way. But, you're still going to have other rules within the collective bargaining agreement, such as, say, the 50% rule that are going to preclude teams from just piling a ton of money in front of players in order to get them to come to their city.
Right, and you know what? I wish we had more time because you could explain that. There's also sort of the Final 8 rule where the teams that are in the playoffs or in the Final 8 in the playoffs can't. They're limited in terms of what they can do.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But the thing is, though, we just talked about Clinton Portis and, there are a couple of other players on that team who have a lot of money just out in future years. And people wonder, why would you do that? Because you're setting yourself up for salary cap failure. Understand that that's actually – in order to sign an Albert Haynesworth or in order to sign a D. Hall, you have
the only way you can do it.
You can't. Yeah, you just no way you can do it. And Eric Schaefer has to think creatively to structure these contracts so that you can acquire the expensive player, but at the same time fit it within the cap. And so that the whole pushing the money out into future years is the way to do it. But at some point in time, you're going to have to account for that money on the cap.
And remember this, when you do it that way, you end up having to spend a lot less on a larger group of players, typically on the back end of your roster.
Exactly.
To fit it under the cap. Hey, Jimmy, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy.
InsideTheCap.blogspot.com. It's a great website. I found it like a year and a half ago. I read it virtually once a week.